All right, so here we are. Okay, this is whatever we're up to, September 4th, whatever, it doesn't matter. But we are definitely getting closer to Rosh Hashanah. It's coming up. We got a few weeks. And tonight's a very important night as we get together and talk some Torah, because we were just mentioning offline that tonight, as we are studying Torah, there are many individuals in this world that now fall into the biggest inclination. I'm not going to call it evil, but one of the biggest challenges that exists in the world today. And of course, that's the NFL football season has started, officially kicked off. All right. And it builds many wonderful relationships and destroys many others. And it makes it that I mean, I know people that once the season starts, like their usual set of routine for life in general, and definitely Torah, Torah study, prayer service, like it really becomes a major challenge for them. I know people, in fact, just say I know people. I've heard about people. I don't think I knew some people. I'm not sure, if they're still doing this, but when I lived in different cities that I've lived in, there are people that they would keep the Shabbat in a classic traditional sense, except for football, right? So that meant like half the year they kept the full, complete traditional Shomer Shabbat. But when football season, college football season would start, like that was it. You know, on the Shabbats, they were hoping that in the season they'd have some Shabbats that would have, a Saturday night game, right? So they could get it after Shabbat, right? So football, was at our Shabbat table last week. We talked about some of this concept of, look at, where the money's at in in the society that you live in, right? And it's very telling about, where our priorities are. Now, believe me, I have spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours of my life watching sports. No doubt. And I have a real deal appreciation for it. And I will probably watch some highlights later tonight just to know how bad the game was. And this is part of life. But in today's world, where we can press pause on the game, right, and watch it, in the right time, right? So it's an interesting concept. Maybe God gave us the gift of press pause on like a live show so you can watch it live when it's not live. It's a pretty cool concept, right? But I know it's not the same. You got to watch it at the same time. So the energies, right? The energy that exists, right? But I'm building on this too much. But I think it's amazing. My point is, what am I trying to get to? We are studying Torah, and that's awesome and amazing, right? There's got to be somebody studying Torah all the time, and we're the ones holding it up right now, which is I think an awesome thing to think about. We say when somebody finishes a particular, a solid, a significant chunk of Torah, they make something called a siyum, which is a completion celebration. And at that siyum, the class, when you finish part of the Talmud or part of the Mishnah, we have a paragraph there, and in the paragraph we say, Haim Ratzim, right? Elu Ratzim, Haim Ratzim, right? Which means that they run and we run. We both are running places, but what are we running towards to accomplish? Right? What are we running towards? And that's something that's really telling and really phenomenal and fantastic and awesome and amazing. So we are here to study some Torah, and I just think it's amazing to do it when there's major things happening in the world. And what are we doing? We are talking to God and having God talk to us through some Torah study. And that is such an awesome opener for this week's Torah portion. How'd you know, Larry? It's awesome, right? Why? The Torah portion is called Ki Seitzei, or Ki Seitzei, which means when you go out to battle, right? So what does it mean classically when you read the verses? It's talking about the laws and the factors, what happens when the Jewish nation goes out to war. Okay, well, guess what? Most of the commentaries, a lot of the commentaries do. They go ahead and they tell us, what are we talking about over here? Not just the battle of physical war that we're going out to. It's talking about going out the battle of every single day of our lives. We go out there, and the enemy that knows us better than ourselves is there to battle with us. It's a daily bout with Mr. Yetzer Hara, Mr. Evil Inclination. His job is to bring out the best in us, but he does it in a very funny way because he knows exactly how we tick, and he knows every single aspect of us right? And when we're emotionally honest with ourselves, right, intellectually honest with ourselves, we could also be in that same space to understand where Mr. Yetzer Hara is coming from when he prepares for war against us, right? We could do the same thing. This very often we have biases that that blind us. We have ego that blinds us, right? All those kinds of things. But that's a Torah portion opens up. When you're going to go out to war, you better brace yourself, prepare yourself. And here's some laws, says the Torah, about how to be successful at battle, how to be successful. And it opens up with some very unique mitzvahs. The Torah portion is filled with all kinds of amazing mitzvahs. Um, some have happened, some haven't happened. Some are quite unique and, I guess give pause, some of them. But there's a lot of mitzvahs in there. A lot of laws of tzedakah and laws about kindness. And they're balanced out. They're balanced out by one of the most unique, something called the rebellious son, which the words literally mean a son who is unruly and rebellious. The Talmud seems to say that this never really happened, but it was more of a warning for the world or for us, right, about what could potentially happen, even at very, very young ages. So there's, that we could spend a long time on that. It's a very interesting topic to spend some time on that. But I think this is an amazing balance of it. We talk about going out to war. We have this rebellious son. We have mitzvahs about tzedakah. One of my favorite mitzvahs in the Torah, and this is because I'm not rich. So since I'm not rich in money, I guess I don't fully appreciate the mitzvah, but it's always been unique for me, the challenge of it. We have a mitzvah in the Torah that says that you can't lend with interest, right? It's called ribbis, or ribbit would be what we, if you pronounce it, there's nothing to do with frogs. And so ribbis is called lending with interest. And it really is very unique. We could have, we could spend a long time talking about it from a halachic standpoint, Jewish law standpoint, because a lot of credit card companies are owned by Jews, at least partially owned by Jews. And the part of a credit concept is exactly that. And if you want to know what the going rates are on the EPRs, I could tell you all of them for every company that's out there. All right. They're basically at the legal limit. Most are at like 29.99% APR is where companies are at these days. That's 30% interest. Wow. And what's the Torah say? Torah says no interest. When you lend to your fellow, you are not allowed to charge them interest. Now, there are exceptions and situations within the business world, right? How that can be done properly. There's an appropriate way to do that with the court system and a special document that has to be written up. So that is important to know from a business standpoint. But in general, when someone comes to borrow money from you, lend somebody money, you can't be like, all right, look, I'll lend you $200,000, but I need you to pay me back $250,000. Can't do that. You can't even write a contract that says that in it, is how strict it is. So I just think this is an amazing balance within the mitzvos of the Torah portion. But the thing I want to focus on just for a few minutes, because I know it's already it's getting closer to 8 o'clock over here, or 9 o'clock, whatever hour you're on, 5 o'clock,
Hey, Rabbi,
6 o'clock. What?
is that a lending standard for like all time, like every day of the year, or is that specific to this time of year?
Always. That's a mitzvah always. In fact, the Torah brings it out. It's mentioned a few times in the Torah. Very often it'll be mentioned in regards to it'll be juxtaposed to the laws of Shemitah, of the sabbatical year, right? Where it's almost this sense of like, look, I'm gonna lend you money, and then like the sabbatical year actually would knock out loans in general. So if you had a loan that somebody owed you money, right, you needed to get paid that back before the sabbatical year, although the sabbatical year would knock it out. So they very often this mitzvah will be relayed along with the Shemitah mitzvah, because we're telling a person, look, we know there's a risk over here, says the Torah, that if you lend this year, right, it's possible if things don't get paid back properly, the courts are gonna go ahead and give this guy a pardon with the Shemitah year, but you're still supposed to lend the money. So obviously it's a huge topic, and it's from the most complicated areas of Jewish law. Very, very detail oriented, and gets into a lot of factors and a lot of pieces, and it really is complicated. Which, there's specialists in this area. When at one point I borrowed a lot of money from my in-laws, but it came out of their HELOC, right? So they had a phenomenal percentage of like 2%, whatever it was, which is great. But the problem was that I was paying, like, my in-laws lent me the money, right? But I was paying my in-laws back for that money, but they had to pay the bank to cover the interest. So we had to write out a special form, right, that explained how the situation was happening. So it wasn't my in-laws that were charging me interest. The interest really was coming from I was covering what the bank was charging. Right? Does that make sense? So this is an example of how complicated it can get.
So just out of curiosity, so as a Jew, you're not breaking that mitzvah by paying interest. You're only breaking the mitzvah by charging interest. So if I make a loan with
Oh,
a non-Jew, that non-Jew is making interest on me.
right.
Like
So
like I'm paying interest to
right. So
yeah, that's
this
not a
would be
problem.
so I'll tell you what it would be is, let's say I mean, this the example would be, so this is an exclusive thing for the Jewish family, right? That it is. So and that's part of it, really. Like, within family, you should be lending without interest within family. That's part of the
Of course.
concept,
Hmm.
right? So, but it would be, let's say, if a Jewish person did lend you money, right, for you to pay, even the guy that's paying back the interest to his fellow Jew, you're
Yeah.
also getting it. That's also a problem.
Okay.
So it's both
So,
sides.
but if the other person that you're borrowing from is not Jewish and you're paying interest on that, is that a problem?
That's not a problem.
No, no, that's not a problem. So, like, you're paying a
Right.
mortgage, and that mortgage has interest, and that mortgage company is definitely not Jewish. That's not an issue. Okay,
Right. Right. This is
interesting.
family matters,
Got it.
says Urkel. Right. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. Whoever got that joke. Sorry. That was a bad one. All right. All right. So
Did
I
I
just
do
wanted to point.
that?
That's right.
Did I do that? Exactly. That's right.
I was waiting for
Okay.
somebody to do that.
So just to point out one more thing, which I think was phenomenal, really amazing, and it relates to all the things we've been talking about so far. So we all could pick our person over the course of history. Let's stick with Jewish people, or Jewish, people that inspire us from a Jewish standpoint. Rabbis, leaders of the Jewish people, perhaps leaders of Israel, whatever it might be. We all have somebody who's like, oh my God, I can never be like that person. Right. The Americans, I'd be like, I want to be like Mike, right? Once we're doing these kind of references, right? Right. Want to be like Mike, right? Can I really Michael Jordan? But I want to let's stick to Torah topics over here, right? So I want to be like Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. He was the greatest halachic mind in America of the past generation, right? But we always tell we tell the next generation, like, oh, you could be as great as a big tzaddik and a righteous person and a Torah scholar, like, par excellence. You could be the next Moshe Feinstein, right? Like, come on, really? Right? What? It's nice inspiration, right? It keeps the kid rocking, right? Like, you could do it, right? But truly, right? We all tell ourselves this, and have we gotten there? Right? How many people are Olympians, right? Right? So, like, we're talking about the greatest of the great, and we strive for it, perhaps, and that's really what we really mean when we say it. Strive for greatness, right? Try to be so amazing. But really, could we actually be? So I saw a beautiful explanation given in this book is called Parsha Pearls, written by D&M Lobenstein. I think they wrote it for their family, but they put it out a number of years ago. I have to track down a copy for myself because I borrow it from the synagogue every time. But I've just been, every time I read this, I just love what they have in here. So they don't tell you. So they bring over here a story from the Chofetz Chaim, who will be somebody that we certainly could aspire to be, as great as the Chofetz Chaim. So the Chofetz Chaim of blessed memory, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, he was a Kohen, and he was right before Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, right? He was of the world, really. He was the halachic master for the world, and he really made halacha accessible to your everyday person. He put a book out called the Mishnah Berurah, and in there he really takes it down to the final law. Read this and you'll know what to do. And without all the complicated back and forth of the Talmud, this is what you do. And he did the world a huge favor, so we can actually access the halacha. So, so there's a very, very interesting halacha. So it's amazing halacha. We're running out of time over here, sorry. But the halacha is like this. The verse says in Deuteronomy 22:4, it says, Hakeim takim imo, which means you must surely stand the animal up with him. What does that mean? So your friend is traveling along with his donkeys, and all of a sudden one of his donkeys, just collapses under the load. So we have an obligation, if we see this happen, to help our friend out and to help the animal out. Unload the animal, strengthen the animal, and then load the animal back up. But you only have an obligation to do so if the owner, your friend, or whatever, even if it's not your friend, right? It can even be your enemy, actually, if they're helping you do it. If they say to you, hey, but I read the Torah, I know that you have an obligation to help out in this situation. I'm just going to chill and watch you do this. You get the mitzvah, it's your mitzvah, your obligation. I'm just chilling. So the verse is very exact in what it says. It's actually, you do not have an obligation. If the owner does that, that mitzvah passes on. It's a nice thing to do, but you're not obligated to help out in that situation. Now you have the right to say, Mr. Owner, look, you're probably really tired. Go relax for a few minutes. I got this. Okay, you can do that. But the mitzvah is very unique, and it says that it has to be that he's also helping you. Okay. The Chofetz Chaim says something amazing. That he said, just as we're not obligated to help with the animal when its owner will not help, so too Hashem will not help a person to grow spiritually unless the person first makes his own efforts to spiritually grow and improve. And he brought a phenomenal parable to bring out this idea. He brings the parable, I'll just paraphrase it, right? You have a fellow, very affluent individual, very giving, right? Always sharing. And he drives on his way to work. He always passes by the same spot. And there's the same poor, Jewish fellow struggling. And he knocks on his window and he says, Mr. Ruveni, can you help me out a little bit? I'm in tough times. He says, sure thing. Come to my office today at the end of the day. Come to my office at 5 o'clock, and we'll see how we can help you out. Please come to my office at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock comes along. The guy doesn't show. Next day on his way to work, comes to the stoplight, knock on his window. Mr. Ruveni, please, can you help me? He says, I assume something came up last night. You couldn't make it, but come to my office at 5 o'clock, and I'm happy to help you out. The guy says, of course, same thing happens. He doesn't show up. Next day, knock on the window, and he says, look, I don't understand, right? I am ready to help you. I told you I'm willing to help you. You just have to come to my door. Come to the office and follow this, okay, you can, why doesn't he bring money with him? That's not Mr. Ruveni's problem over here. Mr. Shimon guy who's struggling needs to make the effort to go, and do his part to get the money. And this really is, I think, what we do in our service, in our service of Hashem. We're always asking God for things. God, help me with this, help me with that, right? Hashem, give me patience, right? God, help me figure out how to make the extra, $50,000 that I need to get by this year. God, help me with my parenting, or give me the, whatever it might be. Help me find my spouse, right? Whatever these things are. Help me with my relationships, right? And these are things we're always asking God for these things. You know what God says? You asked, right? Now I need you to follow through. Like, are you doing your part? Or is it just like, I asked for it, I'm like waiting for the magic to fall, right? What are we doing, right? What are we doing, or are we doing our part? And this is the question we should ask ourselves all the time, especially this time of year when we're in Elul mode, where we're getting ready for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, right? Let's think back on our year, some of the struggles that we've had, how many false promises have we made to God, right? About what we're going to do, how we're going to do, why we're going to do, why we deserve things. Or come on, God, I did this and this and this for you. And God says, you did those things. That's great. But here's the list of things that I've done for you, right? Or, we're making it sound simple, right? But this is the concept over here, right? God says, I'll help you with your burden. I will help you with your burden. But I need to see that you're also helping with the burden. What have you changed in your life, right? What are you doing different? Or are you the exact same Noach Karp that has been saying the exact same words? I think I discussed this in the past over the years, and we'll end with this. I used to have a particular thing I used to ask Hashem about in like every single one of my Amidah, of my silent service. I had the same exact thing I asked. And I think to this day, if I'm in space out mode, right, when I'm doing the prayers, yes, I space out sometimes, right? If I was to space out, I could fall back into those words because I said the exact. Now, did I ever, I've gotten past that, and thanks God, Hashem helped me with it, and so on and so forth, right? But the fact that I kept saying those words and saying those words and saying those words, right? And it's become like I could easily fall back into that. I'm not sure it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it certainly sounds like what we're talking about tonight, right? This concept of we're asking Hashem to help us with the burden. Are we also helping with the burden? Are we doing our part, right? It's a relationship that we build with Hashem. It's a conversation that we have with him on a regular basis. And are we the same? And if we're exactly the same as we were last year, right? What kind of relationship is that? A relationship that is always is consistently the exact same thing. That's not a healthy relationship, right? It needs constant people, constant work, involvement, right? Hearing the other party, seeing challenges in ourselves, and what are we doing about it? So I think it's a beautiful lesson for us as we continue this beautiful journey of traveling towards Rosh Hashanah, making sure that we take advantage of the few more weeks that we have to think about ourselves. So a little blessing for us, big blessing for us. We should have the wherewithal, the energy, and the clarity, and the intelligence, intellectual honesty, right? To think about ourselves. Are we the exact same person that we were last year? And if we are, let's talk to Hashem about some things that we could change or do a little bit different. So, God willing, Shabbos should give us that energy. And it's a new season, new football season. We're getting near the new Jewish season. It's all good, great time of year. Phenomenal time of year. And, we should have success in all of our endeavors, God willing. All right. Questions, thoughts, rebuttals?